I had a mom sit across me from my office the other day, and she told me that her son has been on three different ADHD medications since starting kindergarten. Three of them. And he's 8 years old. And when I asked her, has anyone ever explained to you why his brain got stuck this way in the first place? She just kind of looked at me because the answer truly was no. Nobody ever asked why. They just kept adjusting the dosage, changing this prescription, or adding another one. And I think if you're a parent that's watching this right now, some version of that story is probably really familiar to you. Maybe it's not medication yet. Maybe you're trying to avoid that road all entirely, but you know the feeling, the school calling again, the teacher conference where you're bracing yourself before you even sit down, the other parents at pickup who give you that look when your kid's bouncing off the walls at the birthday party, right? The guilt. Honestly, on both sides. Guilt if you're considering medication and the guilt if you're not. So before I get into any of the science here, I just want to say, if that's you, you're not failing your kid and what you're doing is not wrong. You are just missing a piece of information that honestly most doctors were never even trained on. And it's not entirely their fault either. It's just a part of the conventional model. So let's fix that piece of it today. So here's the first thing that I want you to understand about ADHD. And I think this is really going to change how you see your kid, honestly, for the rest of their life. Your child's nervous system runs basically on two settings. Think about it like a gas pedal and a brake pedal in your car. The gas pedal is the sympathetic side of the nervous system. It's the go, 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 the fight or flight, the high alert system. And the brake pedal is the parasympathetic. That's your calm, your rest, your regulate, your settle down side of the system. Now, in a healthy, regulated nervous system, those two pedals work together. You get the gas when you need it, like energy and focus, or if there's actually danger, right? But then you also get the brake pedal when you need to calm and settle and rest and sleep and grow. That's how it's supposed to work. But in most kids with ADHD, this is what's actually happening. That gas pedal is floored and the brake pedal barely is working at all. So the kid's not choosing to be hyper and they're not choosing to be impulsive, or they don't have the inability to sit still. The nervous system is in go and it doesn't have an off switch that works the way that it should. Now, this isn't a character flaw and it's not bad parenting by any means. It's not too much sugar, not too much screen time. That's a wiring issue within the nervous system. And once you understand that, everything starts to make a whole lot more sense. So the next question is, how does a kid's nervous system end up stuck like this? And this is what we call the perfect storm, because it's usually not just one thing. As much as parents wish that it was just one thing, it's a combination of stressors that stack up early, sometimes really early before a child's born, like with high stress during pregnancy, where stress hormones are crossing the placenta, that then starts shaping how that baby's nervous system develops and reacts. And then we add in birth interventions and birth trauma, forceps and vacuums and emergency C-sections. This is where the physical strain on that baby's head, neck, and upper back right around the brainstem get impacted. Then there's frequent ear infections and rounds of antibiotics within those first couple of years that are disrupting the gut. And the gut is way more connected to the brain than most people even realize. And then that ongoing stress in that early developmental window where the brain is the most moldable that it's ever going to be. Now, none of these things on their own necessarily cause ADHD, but when they stack up together, that's what's called the perfect storm. And what you end up with is a nervous system that gets primed early for that sympathetic dominance, that gas pedal stuck down state before the kid even reaches kindergarten. Now, here's where I think the current system really lets families down. If you take your child in for an ADHD evaluation, what actually happens? They fill out a checklist. Maybe it's called a Vanderbilt scale. Maybe it's the Connors scale. It doesn't really matter because they're all similar. It's a list of behaviors. Does your child fidget? Does your child interrupt? Does your child lose things? Do they get distracted? Do they struggle to sit still? And look, those checklists aren't useless, right? They tell you the what is happening, right? But they don't tell you the why. They cannot tell you that the nervous system got stuck in that state to begin with. You see, a checklist tells you what your kid is doing. It doesn't tell you why. And that's the piece that's missing. That's the piece that we focus in on here. So we use something called the insight scans. I don't want to explain this simply because it sounds super technical, but it's actually not complicated at all. For these kiddos, we use three different non-invasive tests. There's no needles, there's nothing uncomfortable, and that they measure how your child's nervous system is actually functioning in real time. So one measures temperature patterns all along the spine. It shows us where areas of the autonomic nervous system, the part that runs all the automatic functions within the body, are dysregulated. Another measures muscle tension patterns along the spine, which shows us where there's chronic stress and tension that's been sitting there. Now, this one gives me more information for these kids with ADHD because it's quantifying the overload of that brain. And finally, we use heart rate variability, which is basically a snapshot of how resilient and balanced that the nervous system is overall. And what's powerful about this is that I'm not guessing when it comes to your kid. I'm not going off a checklist of behaviors and making an educated guess. I can literally show a parent in black and white on a printout exactly where their child's nervous system is stuck in that overdrive state. Now, we actually see two common patterns that show up in kids with ADHD, and we kind of nickname them raging bull and drunken bull. The raging bull is that overactive, wound up, hypersensitive kid, constantly on high alert, whereas the drunken bull is more underactive. Disorganized is the word that I like to use. That kid that seems spacey, that can't focus, or almost foggy. Both are ADHD, but both look completely different on scans. And that's exactly why a one-size-fits-all checklist or a one-size-fits-all medication doesn't actually address what's going on underneath. So once we know exactly where that dysfunction is and how severe that it is, we can build a care plan that's actually specific to your child. Not a generic protocol, but something that's built around what their nervous system is actually showing us. And this is the part that I really want you to hear, because when we go in and address that root cause, when we start correcting that neurological interference and giving the nervous system the input that it needs to actually regulate itself, something starts to shift. And it's usually not dramatic overnight. But parents come back to me and they say things like, he's sleeping much better. He's sleeping through the night now. Mornings aren't a battle anymore. The teacher has pulled me aside and asked, what's changed? Now, that mom that I mentioned at the beginning, that's the exact conversation that we're having with her now. Not, let's add a fourth ADHD medication, stimulant, non-stimulant, what have you. It's let's actually find out what's driving this. Because ADHD doesn't have to be a lifelong battle that just gets managed with higher doses or different medications. When the nervous system actually gets the chance to regulate, that same kid that's been labeled disruptive or difficult or too much, that same intensity can become their biggest strength. That energy, that drive, that quick brain. It's not something that we're trying to take away. We're just trying to get it out of survival mode so that it can actually work for them instead of against them. Now, if this sounds like your child, if you've been living on that medication merry-go-round, or you're just starting to notice the signs, you don't know where to turn, I want you to do something right now. Send us a message. Use the word focus. And our team at Haven Family Chiropractic right here in Katy will walk you through exactly what an evaluation and the neurological insight scans looks like for your family. No pressure, no obligation, just real answers. Because you've already tried so hard for your kiddo, right? And let's find out what's actually been missing.